What's up, you guys? Welcome back to LeMaster Tech, and in today's video we're going to do something a little different, and I'm going to show you how to fix your guitar not making any sound while it's plugged in. So this type of video is obviously a little out of place for my channel, but it honestly just sort of happened to me this week, and so I thought that would make some pretty good content. It's a fairly engineering-y concept, and it could save a lot of musicians a lot of money on taking their electric guitar into a repair store when it's actually a pretty simple fix that you can do with just a few basic tools. Okay, so 9 out of 10 times that you're having the issue that your guitar that was just working the other week stops making sound, it's an issue with wires that are behind this panel. And so most guitars are actually fairly standard here. You can access these wires just by undoing a few screws. Obviously, this is a Fender Jaguar. Most Fenders have the same little 3-screw mechanism. I know there are some acoustic, semi-hollow guitars and other brands of guitars where it might be a little more complicated than that, but most guitars have a way for you to access the electronics below the volume knob, and typically you want to find whatever panel is closest to your volume knob and your actual input port. Okay, so let's go ahead and open this up and take a look at the wires underneath here so we understand what's going wrong. What we're going to look at first is what's going on the underside of our jack, because that's what actually takes sound in from the guitar and moves it to the amp. So if yours looks kind of like mine, then the problem is probably going to be pretty apparent. You'll probably have a bad solder where these wires are either loose or they'll lift right off. Okay, so I know looking at the underside of this can look like a lot of electrical engineering scariness at first, but it's really not. The things we need to focus on here are just the 2 wires that are attached to the jack. 9 times out of 10, if your guitar has completely stopped making any sound, it's not just fuzzy or distorted. One of these 2 is going to have a bad solder connection, or it will have cracked or broken off of the lead entirely. For mine, one of them was originally off on its own, and the other one was actually pretty loose, so I just took them both off because for the purposes of this video, I'm going to want to fix both of their solder joint connections. If you have a bad solder joint on any of your knobs anywhere in this circuit, you can get this same kind of issue. So what we're doing is specifically for the audio jack, but if you have a bad solder joint anywhere along this line, you can fix it. But if you have a damaged electrical component and you're not comfortable with like electronic engineering, then you probably should take it into a repair shop. But I'm going to show you what to do if you have a simple bad solder joint like I have here. So let's discuss this while the solder gun is heating up. But basically what we're going to do is we're going to take the hot tip of our solder gun and a little bit of our actual electrical solder, and we're going to try to melt a bit of solder onto the join point for the wire and the metal lead that it's supposed to be on. So what can make this a lot easier is if you have like an alligator clip or something that can kind of hold your wire in place, or you might want to try to, I know it's going to be hard to see with the camera, but you could try to bend a little hook into your wire so that it'll stay in place a lot better while we melt solder onto it, because getting a good contact right here is the most important thing to make sure that this joint takes and that it lasts, because you don't want this to happen again in a few weeks. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at how to actually solder these together. Go ahead and get your solder pen and try to get your wires to sort of sit there. Again, if you have gator clips, that can work, but you basically need it stationary so that with one hand you can feed solder and with the other you can melt it with your pen. So take a little bit of solder in your pen and melt it, and you're gonna have to remove the pen for the melted solder to set up, but once you do remove your pen, it does dry very quickly. And so I like to call it the tug test, but just within a few seconds of you finishing the solder, give it a little tug. If it pops right off like that, you didn't take well to one of the leads. So if you don't pass the tug test, you just have to get your lead back in place, remelt that solder, and you need to get it to where it really has a good grip, not just on your wire, but also on the lead you're attaching it to. You should have a very snug connection that passes the tug test. Put it back in, make sure you get all the wires tucked away, and screw it back on, and then plug it back into the amp and see if you've got it playing. Okay, so the test is obviously plug your guitar back in, turn your amp back on, and you should get a pretty clear sound. If you're still getting a lot of fuzz, or you play and it kind of cuts in and out, then you might have a bad solder joint. That probably means that you need to get back in there and make sure that those have a really good connection. This is a silly thing to check, but when you plug it back in, make sure your volume knob is not all the way down, because you can initially think, oh crap, it's still not working, but there's a chance your volume knob might just be down. And it should be pretty clear for you. So if you did the soldering, if you open it back up and you try again and you're confident that all your solder connections are still good, then it's probably time to go to the guitar store, and then you're probably at the point where you need to replace a capacitor or something along those lines. So at that point, it's a little past standard home repair, and it is probably time to go to the guitar store. Okay, and that is gonna be pretty much it, guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that helped. If you have questions about what you saw in this video, or wanna let me know what you'd like to see more of on the channel going forward, feel free to let me know about in the comments below. I appreciate all the views, all the subscribers. Consider leaving a like on the video, subscribe to the channel. It helps me out a ton. And consider checking out my Patreon link in the description of the video as well if you want to become a super subscriber of the channel. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time, thanks. Bye.